Her son stopped her billionaire CEO ex-husband's wedding party and announced he was the father of my unborn child. Mom is pregnant, and Dad, you are the father. The microphone screeched with feedback as my 11-year-old son Marcus stood at the podium in front of 300 of San Francisco's most powerful people. His small hands gripped the microphone stand like it was the only thing keeping him anchored to this earth. I watched from my corner table as the words detonated through the gilded ballroom. Time itself seemed to fracture into 1,000 pieces. No, 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 no. My legs refused to move. My lungs forgot how to breathe. Every cell in my body screamed at me to run to that stage and somehow stuff those words back into my son's mouth. But it was too late. The bomb had already exploded. Nathaniel stood frozen beside his bride-to-be. The champagne flute tumbled from his fingers in slow motion. Crystal met marble with a sound like breaking dreams. Golden liquid splashed across his Italian leather shoes, but he did not notice. His face had gone the color of fresh snow. Victoria's perfectly manicured nails dug into his arm hard enough to leave marks. Her smile remained fixed in place, but her eyes. God, her eyes could have frozen the Pacific Ocean solid. Control yourself, Nathaniel. She spoke through clenched teeth without moving her lips. A ventriloquist of social propriety. The photographers are capturing everything. But Nathaniel was not listening. His gaze had locked onto mine across the ballroom with the intensity of a man watching his entire life crumble into ash. 18 years of history passed between us in that single look. Our first date at that terrible Italian restaurant where he could barely afford the cheapest wine on the menu. Our wedding day when he cried reading his vows. The night Marcus was born and he held our son like the most precious treasure in the universe. The fights that grew louder as his company grew larger. The silence that eventually swallowed us whole. The divorce papers that felt like signing my own death certificate. And now this. A secret I had guarded for 14 weeks exposed by our well-intentioned son, who had no idea he had just detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of high society. Camille. Nathaniel's voice cut through the paralyzed silence. Raw. Fractured. Desperate. Tell me he did not just say what I think he said. A murmur rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. 300 people in designer gowns and bespoke suits leaned forward with the hungry anticipation of wolves who had just scented blood. This was the kind of scandal that would fuel dinner party conversations for years. Marcus stood at the podium, looking suddenly smaller than his 11 years. The triumphant grin that had accompanied his announcement began to waver as he registered the chaos he had created. His dark eyes found mine across the room, filled with confusion and the first flickering flames of fear. Mom. His voice came through the microphone, small and uncertain. Did I do something wrong? Before I could respond, a hotel manager materialized at my elbow. His face was professionally neutral, but I could see the barely contained panic behind his eyes. This was not in his training manual. Madam, perhaps it would be best if we continued this conversation somewhere more private. The crowd parted before me like the Red Sea as I made my way toward the stage. Every step felt like walking through wet concrete. Whispers followed me like shadows. Did she just hear what I heard? The ex-wife. Can you imagine? Victoria must be absolutely dying inside. 14 weeks. That means it happened while they were already engaged. I reached the stage and took Marcus's hand. It was trembling. Whatever fantasy he had constructed about this moment clearly had not included his mother's ashen face or his father's shell-shocked expression, or the way Victoria looked like she was calculating the most painful way to destroy us all. Come on, sweetheart. I kept my voice steady through sheer force of will. We need to go somewhere quiet. But I fixed everything. Marcus's voice cracked. You and Dad, the baby. We can be a family again. That is what you wanted, right? Oh, my beautiful, naive boy. If only life were as simple as the mathematics of love you had calculated in your 11-year-old heart. Nathaniel reached us then, Victoria trailing behind him like a silk-wrapped storm cloud. His hand closed around my elbow, and the touch sent electricity through my entire body. Even now, even in this nightmare, my traitorous heart still remembered what it felt like to love this man. We need to talk. His voice was barely above a whisper. Now, the elevator ride to the private suite was the longest 4 minutes of my existence. Marcus stood between Nathaniel and me. His earlier confidence had evaporated, completely replaced by the dawning horror of a child who realizes he has made a terrible mistake. His small body trembled against my side. Victoria occupied the opposite corner of the elevator. She had not spoken a single word since we left the ballroom. Her silence was somehow more terrifying than any scream could have been. She stared straight ahead at the polished elevator doors, and I watched her reflection, watching the micro-expressions that flickered across her perfect features like lightning in a distant storm. The numbers climbed. 12, 13, 14. Nobody breathed. 15, 16. The penthouse level. The doors slid open with a soft chime that felt obscenely cheerful given the circumstances. The hotel manager who had accompanied us gestured toward a set of ornate double doors. The Wellington Suite. He produced a key card with slightly shaking hands. I have instructed staff that you are not to be disturbed. Please take all the time you need. The suite was stunning. Soaring ceilings with crystal chandeliers. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a glittering view of the San Francisco skyline. Furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary. A space designed for celebration and romance. Tonight, it would serve as a courtroom. The door closed behind us with a soft click that somehow sounded like a judge's gavel falling. Sit down. Victoria's voice finally broke the silence. All of you. Now. Her tone left no room for argument. We arranged ourselves like defendants awaiting sentencing. Nathaniel and I on the cream-colored sofa. Marcus in an armchair that seemed to swallow his small frame. Victoria remained standing, positioned between us and the door like a general surveying a battlefield. She turned to face us, and I finally saw the full extent of the damage behind her careful facade. Her eyes were red-rimmed. A single mascara track had escaped down her left cheek before she caught it. The woman who had seemed so untouchable, so perfect, so far above the messiness of ordinary human emotion, looked suddenly mortal. 14 weeks. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the hairline fractures running through it. You have been pregnant for 14 weeks. I nodded, because what else could I do? The truth was already out there, detonating like cluster bombs across San Francisco's social landscape. And the father. She let out a laugh that contained no humor whatsoever. The father is my fiancé. The man I am supposed to marry in 4 months. The man who told me he had moved on from his past. The man who promised me that whatever he and his ex-wife once shared was ancient history. Victoria, Nathaniel started. Do not. She held up one perfectly manicured hand. Do not you dare try to manage this situation, Nathaniel. Do not you dare use that voice you use in boardrooms when you are trying to close a deal. I am not a merger to be negotiated. I am the woman you were going to marry. The woman who just had her engagement party turn into a public humiliation. She began to pace. Her champagne-colored gown rustled with each step like whispered accusations. I want to know everything. She stopped in front of me. Her gaze was a physical weight. When? Where? Why? And I swear to God, Camille, if you lie to me, I will make what just happened downstairs look like a minor inconvenience. The words stuck in my throat. How do you explain to another woman that you slept with the man she loves? How do you justify a moment of weakness that has now exploded into catastrophe? It was after the foundation gala. Nathaniel spoke before I could. His voice was heavy with resignation. 14 weeks ago, the night of the Sterling Foundation launch. Victoria's eyes closed briefly. I remember that night. I stayed late to handle donor follow-up. I told you to take Camille and Marcus to dinner because I thought... She laughed again, that terrible hollow sound. I thought it would be good for Marcus. I thought you were being a good co-parent. I thought... She could not finish the sentence. I am so sorry. The words felt pathetically inadequate, but they were all I had. I never meant for this to happen. We never meant. You never meant. Victoria's composure finally cracked. You never meant to sleep with my fiancé. You never meant to get pregnant with his child. You never meant to keep it secret for 3.5 months while I planned a wedding that apparently meant nothing. It meant something. Nathaniel stood. Victoria, please. That night was a mistake. We got caught up in memories and wine and a mistake. Her voice rose to a pitch I had never heard from the always composed Victoria Sinclair. A mistake is forgetting to send a thank you note. A mistake is double booking a dinner reservation. This is not a mistake, Nathaniel. This is a choice, a series of choices. You chose to kiss her, you chose to take her to bed. And then you chose to spend the last 14 weeks lying to my face while I picked out wedding invitations and tasted cake samples and told everyone I knew how lucky I was to be marrying you. Mom. Marcus's small voice cut through the adult chaos. His face was streaked with tears. I did not mean to make everyone so angry, I thought. I thought if everyone knew about the baby, then you and Dad would get back together and we could be a family again, and Victoria would find someone else who loved her and everyone would be happy. The raw innocence of his logic shattered something inside me. Oh, sweetheart. I moved to kneel beside his chair, taking his hands in mine. This is not your fault. The adults in this room made choices, and those choices have consequences. You were just trying to help in the only way you knew how. But I ruined everything. His voice broke on a sob. Dad's party is destroyed. Victoria is crying. You look like you're going to be sick. I made everything worse. Victoria watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. Something in her face softened almost imperceptibly. You did not create this situation, Marcus. Her voice had lost some of its sharp edges. The adults in your life did that all on their own. You just... She paused, searching for words. Accelerated the timeline. What does that mean? It means the truth was going to come out eventually. She looked at me with something approaching grudging respect. Your mother could not have hidden a pregnancy forever. And lies have a way of surfacing whether we want them to or not. Nathaniel ran both hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from years of marriage. He only did that when he was completely overwhelmed. What happens now? His voice was rough. Victoria, I know you have every right to hate me, every right to walk out that door and never look back. But can we please? Can we just talk about this? Talk. Victoria laughed, but there was no cruelty in it now. Just exhaustion. You want to talk? Fine. Let us talk, Nathaniel. Let us talk about how I spent 18 months building a life with you. How I relocated my entire foundation to San Francisco to be closer to you. How I introduced you to my family as the man I was going to spend my life with. How I defended you to everyone who warned me that a man who worked as much as you did would never have room for a real relationship. I told them they were wrong, her voice cracked. I told them you had changed. That losing Camille had taught you what really mattered. That you were ready to be present, to be a partner, to build something real. Victoria. I started, but she cut me off. No. You do not get to comfort me. She pressed her fingers to her temples. You do not get to be the sympathetic shoulder right now, Camille. You are the reason my life just imploded. I know. The words came out barely above a whisper. And I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry. Not just for what happened, but for how you found out. You deserved better than this. Yes. She met my eyes. I did. Silence fell over the suite like a heavy blanket. Outside the window, San Francisco glittered on, oblivious to the drama unfolding in this penthouse room. Marcus had stopped crying. He sat in the oversized armchair with his knees pulled up to his chest, watching the adults with the wary attention of a child who has learned that the grown-up world is far more complicated than he ever imagined. I need air, Victoria finally said. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Her hand rested on the handle for a long moment. You know what the worst part is? She spoke without turning around. I actually liked you, Camille. When Nathaniel insisted on maintaining a civil relationship with his ex-wife, I prepared myself to hate you. But you were kind. You never tried to interfere with our relationship. You supported Marcus spending time with us. You made co-parenting look almost easy, Victoria the Freurs. And now I have to reconcile that woman with the one who slept with my fiancé and kept his baby secret for months. She finally turned. Her face was a mask of exhaustion and grief. I do not know how to do that. I do not know if I can. You do not have to figure it out tonight. Nathaniel's voice was gentle. None of us do. Victoria studied him for a long moment. Then she reached up and began removing her engagement ring. The massive diamond caught the chandelier light, throwing rainbows across the walls. I think we both know this is over, Nathaniel. Her voice was steady now. Whatever happened or did not happen with Camille, whatever you claim it meant or did not mean, you kept a secret from me for 14 weeks, a secret about a child. Our entire relationship is built on a foundation that was cracked from the moment you walked out of this woman's bedroom. She placed the ring on the coffee table. It sat there glittering accusingly. I will have my things removed from your house by the end of the week. I will release a statement to the press citing irreconcilable differences. I will not drag either of you through the mud publicly because, despite everything, I am not cruel. But I need you to understand something, Nathaniel. She walked toward the door with the dignity of a queen abdicating her throne. I could have made you happy. I would have spent the rest of my life trying. But you were never really mine, were you? Some part of you always belonged to her, to them, to the family you lost. She opened the door. I hope you figure out what you actually want. Both of you. Because that little boy over there deserves parents who know their own hearts. The door closed behind her with a soft click. And just like that, Victoria Sinclair walked out of our lives, taking with her the future Nathaniel had planned and the certainty I had clung to that what happened between us could somehow remain buried. The silence that followed her departure was deafening. For almost 10 minutes, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. We sat in the wreckage of the evening like survivors of a shipwreck, clinging to whatever debris we could find. Marcus eventually broke the spell. Is she gone? His voice was small and uncertain. For good. Nathaniel let out a long breath. Yes, buddy. I think she is. Because of me. No. Nathaniel moved to kneel in front of his son's chair. Because of choices your mother and I made. You just... He glanced at me, searching for the right words. You just brought those choices into the light sooner than we planned. I wanted to help. Fresh tears spilled down Marcus's cheeks. I saw how you looked at each other at the gala, and then I found out about the baby, and I thought if everyone just knew the truth, then you would realize you belong together. Oh, Marcus. I moved to join Nathaniel in front of our son. Wrapping my arms around my boy, I tried to absorb some of his guilt into myself. The truth is complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes people can love each other and still not be able to make a life together. But why? His question was the eternal cry of children everywhere. Why can love not be enough? I had no answer for that. Neither did Nathaniel. Because grown-ups are stupid sometimes, Nathaniel finally said. We get scared. We make mistakes. We convince ourselves that what we want is different from what we actually want. Do you still love Mom? The question hung in the air like a held breath. I watched Nathaniel's face as he processed the directness of our son's inquiry. Watched the walls he had built over 6 years of divorce tremble under the weight of a simple question. It is complicated, buddy. That is not an answer. Marcus pulled back from my embrace to stare at his father with those dark eyes that missed nothing. You always say it is complicated when you do not want to tell the truth. Nathaniel's jaw tightened, then relaxed. He looked at me, and in that moment, I saw past every defense he had constructed. Past the successful CEO persona. Past the carefully maintained distance of co-parenting. Past 6 years of pretending we had moved on. I never stopped. His voice was barely above a whisper. Not really. I just got very good at pretending I had. My heart stuttered in my chest. Nathaniel. That is not fair, he finished. I know. It is not fair to say that after everything that has happened tonight. It is not fair to you or to Marcus or to Victoria. But our son asked me a direct question, and I am tired of lying. I am tired of pretending that what I feel for you is just fondness for my co-parent. I am tired of acting like that night. 14 weeks ago was just a mistake we can forget. He stood abruptly and walked to the window. His reflection stared back at us, ghostly and uncertain. I have spent 6 years trying to become someone new. Someone who prioritizes work over family, because that is what I know how to do. Someone who chooses partners based on compatibility and shared goals because passion failed me before. Someone who keeps his ex-wife at arm's length because every time I see her, I remember everything I lost. Nathaniel. He turned. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. And then one night, one stupid wine-soaked nostalgic night, all of that carefully constructed distance collapsed, and I remembered what it felt like to hold you, what it felt like to be held by you, what it felt like to be part of something that mattered more than quarterly earnings reports. I could not breathe. Marcus watched us with wide eyes, understanding and confusion warring across his young face. The baby, I managed. We need to talk about the baby. I know. Nathaniel crossed back to us. He sat down heavily on the coffee table facing the chair where Marcus still huddled and the spot where I had frozen in place. I know we need to discuss logistics and custody and how to tell people and 1,000 other practical considerations. He reached out and took my hand. The contact sent warmth flooding through my entire body. But before we talk about any of that, I need to know something, Camille. That night, was it just memories and wine for you two? Or was it something more? The question I had been avoiding for 14 weeks. The question I asked myself every morning while I threw up in the bathroom and every night while I lay awake wondering how I had made such a mess of everything. The answer I had been afraid to admit even to myself. It was everything. The words escaped before I could stop them. It was remembering who I used to be before I became just your wife. It was feeling seen for the first time in years. It was terrifying and wonderful and completely reckless, and I have spent every day since trying to convince myself it did not mean what it meant. What did it mean? That I never stopped loving you either. Marcus let out a small sound, half sob and half laugh. I knew it. His voice was thick with emotion. I knew you still loved each other. That is why I told everyone about the baby. Because I could see it even if you could not. I pulled him into my arms. That does not make what you did okay, sweetheart. You shared something private without permission. You embarrassed a lot of people and hurt Victoria very badly. I know. His voice was muffled against my shoulder. I know, and I am sorry. But Mom, you and Dad, you are going to fix things now, right? The baby is going to have both parents together. We are going to be a real family again. I looked at Nathaniel over our son's head. The hope in Marcus's voice was heartbreaking in its simplicity, as if declaring love could erase 6 years of learned distance and broken trust, as if a baby could paper over the cracks that had split us apart in the first place. Nathaniel's expression told me he was thinking the same thing. It is not that simple, buddy, he said gently. Your mom and I have a lot of things to figure out, a lot of conversations to have. The problems that broke up our marriage did not disappear just because we still have feelings for each other. But you love each other. Love is not always enough. I echoed my earlier words. Sometimes you have to learn how to love someone differently. Sometimes you have to grow and change before you can be what another person needs. Marcus pulled back to look between us. Are you saying you are not getting back together? I am saying we do not know yet, Nathaniel answered honestly. I am saying your mother and I need time to talk, to figure out what we both want, to decide what is best for you and for the baby and for ourselves. Marcus's face crumpled. That is just another way of saying it is complicated. Yes, I admitted. It is. But complicated does not mean impossible. It just means we need to be careful. We need to be honest. We need to make sure that whatever we decide is right for everyone. The clock on the wall showed nearly midnight. The engagement party would be long over by now. The guests would have scattered to their various mansions and penthouses, carrying the scandal of the evening like party favors. Tomorrow, the consequences would begin in earnest. Phone calls from concerned friends. Media inquiries, board members wanting explanations, family members demanding answers. But tonight in this penthouse suite, surrounded by the wreckage of carefully constructed lives, we had one moment of peace. One moment of honesty. One moment where 3 people who had been pretending for too long finally stopped. We should get you home, I told Marcus. It has been a very long night. Can Dad come with us? I looked at Nathaniel. He looked at me. Something unspoken passed between us. An acknowledgement that whatever came next, we were done running from each other. I think, he said slowly, we have some things to discuss that might take a while, but I can follow in my car. Make sure you both get home safe. That is something, at least, Marcus said with a watery smile. We gathered ourselves and left the Wellington suite. The hallway was empty. The elevator ride down was silent, but somehow different from the ride up. Less suffocating. More uncertain in a way that felt almost hopeful. In the lobby, a handful of hotel staff pretended not to notice us. The paparazzi who had been lurking outside the gala entrance had apparently given up or been moved along. Small mercies. We walked to the parking garage together. An odd little family procession. The pregnant ex-wife, the former billionaire groom, the 11-year-old matchmaker who had just blown up everyone's lives. I will see you in 20 minutes, Nathaniel said as I unlocked my car. We can talk while Marcus gets ready for bed. Okay, he hesitated, then leaned forward and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Gentle, uncertain, full of questions neither of us had answers for yet. Whatever happens, he murmured. Whatever we figure out. Thank you for not running. Thank you for being honest with me tonight. We are past running, I said. We have a baby coming. We have Marcus. We have too much history to pretend anymore. He nodded, then stepped back and walked toward his own car. Marcus watched him go. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. I really am sorry. For ruining the party. For embarrassing you. For making Victoria cry. I know you are. But he looked up at me with those impossibly old eyes. I am not sorry that everyone knows now. I am not sorry that Dad finally said he loves you. I am not sorry that maybe things might work out. I pulled him into a hug. We are going to have a lot of conversations about boundaries and privacy and respecting other people's secrets. I told him. What you did tonight had real consequences that we will be dealing with for a long time. I know. But I pulled back to look at him. I am not sorry either. About the things that matter. His smile was like sunrise after a storm. Let us go home. Now, my beautiful souls, I need to take you back. Back 14 weeks to where this whole story really began. Back to a foundation gala and a dinner that changed everything. Back to the night I made a choice that would alter the course of 4 lives forever. But before I do that, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where someone saw straight through the story you were telling yourself? A moment where a child or a friend or a stranger asked a simple question that cracked everything open? If you have, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below sharing your story. And if you are new here, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss what happens next. Because trust me, the journey to this moment, the foundation gala and everything after, that is where the real story lives. Now let me take you back to the beginning. 14 weeks earlier. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember exactly where I was standing when I pulled it from the mailbox. The late afternoon sun was painting everything gold. Mrs. Henderson next door was watering her roses like she did every day at 4:30. Everything was ordinary. Everything was predictable. Then I saw the envelope. Heavy cream paper. The kind that costs more per sheet than some people spend on groceries. Embossed with silver lettering that caught the light. The Sterling Foundation Gala. Honoring Nathaniel Ashford's philanthropic vision. I stood on my front porch tracing my fingers across his name and wondering if sudden food poisoning might provide a convenient excuse. Is that from Dad? I had not heard Marcus come outside. He materialized at my elbow with that supernatural ability children have to appear exactly when you least expect them. His dark eyes widened when he saw the elegant stationery. The charity gala. He practically vibrated with excitement. Can we go? Please, Mom, please. You do not have to attend, sweetheart. I adjusted his collar because I needed something to do with my hands. Something to disguise the way they had started trembling. Your father would understand if we skipped this one, but it is his foundation. Marcus fixed me with that penetrating stare that saw far too much for an 11-year-old. He specifically asked me to be there. He called last week. Remember? I did remember. Nathaniel's voice on the phone, careful and formal as always, but with an undercurrent of something that sounded almost like hope. I would really love for Marcus to see what we have built, Camille. And you are welcome too, of course, if you want to come. If I wanted to come, as if the decision were that simple, as if seeing my ex-husband honored for his charitable vision would not involve standing in a room full of people who had watched our marriage implode from the society pages. You always say we should celebrate the people we care about, Marcus pressed. Remember when you made me go to Grandma's retirement party, even though it was super boring? That was different. How? I did not have an answer for that. The truth was the gala represented everything I had been avoiding since the divorce, not Nathaniel specifically. We had managed to construct a functional co-parenting arrangement over the past 6 years. Custody exchanges that operated like hostage negotiations, brief, polite conversations about Marcus's school and activities, the careful maintenance of distance that made joint parenting survivable. But this was different. This was his world. The glittering realm of charity galas and powerful donors and a fiancée who looked like she had stepped out of a magazine spread. The Sterling Foundation is important to Dad. Marcus was still talking. His voice had taken on that earnest quality that always broke down my defenses. He has been building this for 3 years. It helps kids like me, kids who need opportunities, kids like him. I studied my son's face, wondering when he had become so skilled at manipulation. Marcus wanted for nothing. He had 2 parents who adored him, the best schools, every advantage money could provide. But he was right about the foundation. Nathaniel had poured his heart into creating educational opportunities for underprivileged youth. Whatever else I might feel about my ex-husband, I could not deny that the Sterling Foundation was doing real good in the world. Mom, Marcus's voice gentled. Are you okay? You look worried. Just anxious about the crowd. I blinked rapidly and pasted on a smile. Fine, we will go. But you have to promise to stay close and not wander off. His face lit up like Christmas morning. Yes, thank you. This is going to be amazing. I watched him bound back into the house to presumably start planning his outfit and wondered why his enthusiasm felt so suspicious. At the time, I dismissed the feeling. 11-year-old boys got excited about fancy parties where they could stuff themselves with hors d'oeuvres and feel grown up. There was nothing unusual about that. Looking back, I realized he was already planning, already scheming, already calculating how to use the gala as the first step in his campaign to reunite his parents. I should have paid more attention to that secretive smile. The next week passed in a blur of normal life punctuated by moments of gala-related anxiety. I threw myself into client work using deadlines as a distraction from the growing knot in my stomach. Freelance marketing consulting had seemed like the perfect career pivot after the divorce. Flexible hours that worked around Marcus's schedule. Interesting projects that kept my mind engaged. Enough income to maintain our comfortable life without relying on Nathaniel's money. He had offered, of course, generous alimony and child support arrangements that would have let me never work again. But I needed to know I could stand on my own. Needed to prove to myself and maybe to him that I was more than just the wife of Nathaniel Ashford. 6 years later, I had built something I was proud of. A client roster of small businesses and nonprofits who appreciated my personal attention. A reputation for delivering results without the corporate overhead. But success in business did not make facing my ex-husband any easier. The night of the gala, I stood in front of my closet for nearly an hour. Every dress seemed wrong, too casual, too formal, too desperate to impress, too obviously not trying. Finally, Marcus appeared in my doorway. The emerald one. He said with the confidence of someone who has given this considerable thought. It makes your eyes beautiful. I turned surprised by the compliment and by the certainty in his voice. Thank you, sweetheart. I mean it. He came to stand beside me, both of us facing the closet. You always look sad when we have to see Dad. Tonight I want you to look like you. The real you. Not the pretending everything is fine you. When did you get so perceptive? He shrugged. I am your son. The emerald dress slid over my body like a second skin. It was 3 years old, purchased for a work event I had never attended. It fit better now than it had then. Somehow both elegant and understated. Perfect, Marcus said. Now let us go before we are late. The Grand Meridian Hotel blazed with light when we arrived. Valets in crisp uniforms opened car doors. A red carpet led to the entrance because, apparently, charity galas required red carpets now. Name, please. The woman at the reception table barely looked up from her tablet. Camille Ashford. I hesitated. I mean Camille. I kept my ex-husband's name for professional reasons, but moments like this always felt awkward. The woman's eyebrows rose slightly as she registered who I was. The ex-wife. Here at the engagement party, adjacent gala. I could see her mentally filing away this information for later gossip. Right this way, Mrs. Ashford. She did not even acknowledge Marcus. The ballroom took my breath away. I had been to plenty of upscale events during my marriage. Nathaniel's world required regular attendance at charity functions and business gatherings. But the Sterling Foundation Gala was something else entirely. Soaring ceilings adorned with crystal chandeliers that scattered rainbows across everything below. Arrangements of white roses so massive they seemed to be sculptures. Tables dressed in gold and cream. A string quartet playing something classical and expensive in the corner. And people. So many people in designer gowns and bespoke suits. Diamonds glittering at throats and wrists. The careful laughter of those who networked even at charity events. I felt immediately out of place. Mom. Marcus tugged my hand. There is Dad. I followed his gaze across the room and felt my heart perform a complicated maneuver in my chest. Nathaniel stood in the center of everything. Of course he did. He wore a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. His dark hair was perfectly styled. His smile was perfectly calibrated. And beside him, Victoria Sinclair embodied everything I was not and everything the society columns celebrated. Elegant, poised, the kind of beauty that came from generations of good breeding and excellent dermatologists. She touched Nathaniel's arm with the casual possessiveness of a woman who knew exactly where she stood. He had moved on, built a new life, found someone who fit into his world without the rough edges I had always carried. And I was standing in the doorway of his gala, holding the hand of our son and wondering why I had agreed to come. Let us find our table, I said. Your father will find us when he has time. But Mom. Marcus. My voice came out sharper than intended. We need to let your father do his job tonight. This is an important event for him. The hurt that flashed across his face made me feel like the worst mother in the world. I just wanted to say hi. His voice was small. I crouched down to his level. I know, sweetheart. And you will. But look around. Your dad has a lot of people to talk to tonight. A lot of important donors and foundation supporters. We need to be patient. Is that why Victoria gets to stand next to him and we have to sit at a table? The question hit me like a physical blow. Victoria is his partner. I managed. She helps run the foundation with him. It makes sense for them to greet guests together. But you used to be his partner. You used to stand next to him at parties. That was a long time ago. Not that long. Marcus. I took his face in my hands. Your father and I are not together anymore. That does not mean he loves you any less. It just means the grown-up relationship did not work out. But why? It is complicated. That is what you always say. I know. Marcus. The voice came from behind me. Familiar. Deep. Carrying an undertone of genuine warmth that I had almost forgotten existed. I straightened and turned. Nathaniel stood 3 feet away. He had crossed the entire ballroom while I was focused on our son. Up close, he looked older than I remembered. Fine lines around his eyes that had not been there before. A tiredness beneath his polished facade. But his smile when he looked at Marcus was real. Unguarded in a way he rarely allowed himself to be in public. Dad. Marcus launched himself forward, and Nathaniel caught him in a hug that lasted longer than I expected. I missed you, buddy. Your mother has been hogging you. It has only been a week. A week is too long. Watching them together always did something complicated to my heart. This was what I had fallen in love with all those years ago. Not the successful businessman or the powerful CEO, the man underneath. The one who looked at his son like he was the most important thing in the universe. The man I had divorced because he could never seem to remember that Marcus and I needed that attention too. Camille. Nathaniel finally acknowledged me. His eyes swept over my dress with an expression I could not quite read. You look beautiful. Thank you. The words came out stiff. So do you. I mean, you look nice, professional. I am going to stop talking now. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Some things never change. I cannot tell if that is an insult. It is not. His gaze held mine for a beat too long. I promise. Nathaniel, darling. Victoria materialized at his elbow with the seamless timing of someone accustomed to managing her fiancé's social interactions. Her smile was perfect. Her champagne-colored gown was perfect. Everything about her was so goddamn perfect that I wanted to scream. The Worthington family is ready to discuss their annual pledge. She placed a hand on his arm. That same possessive gesture I had witnessed from across the room. Of course. Nathaniel's attention shifted with practiced ease. The foundation director. The man with obligations and responsibilities that stretched far beyond one ex-wife and one eager son. He turned back to us, already retreating into his public persona. Marcus, there is someone I want you to meet later. A young man whose education we are sponsoring. His story is remarkable. I think you two would get along. Can Mom come too? The question caught all three of us off guard. Nathaniel glanced at Victoria. She gave no indication of her feelings. Her perfect mask revealed nothing. Of course, if she wants to, I should let you work. The escape route beckoned. You have guests to attend to. 5 minutes, he said. Wait for me. He always said that. The pattern of our marriage distilled into 2 words. Wait for me. While he finished a meeting. While he closed a deal. While he conquered another piece of the business world. I had spent years waiting. Let me show you around, I told Marcus. We can explore while your father handles his responsibilities. Nathaniel's face flickered with something. Regret, maybe. Or recognition of the old wound I had just reopened. Then Victoria steered him away and he disappeared into the crowd of important people with important money. Come on, sweetheart, I forced brightness into my voice. Let us go see what kind of desserts they have. We wove through the gala with Marcus pointing out everything that caught his 11-year-old attention. The ice sculpture shaped like an open book. The chocolate fountain that seemed to be producing an endless stream of sweetness. The jazz quartet that had replaced the string musicians. Despite myself, I had to acknowledge that Nathaniel had created something extraordinary. Each scholarship recipient's story was presented with care and dignity. Photos and brief biographies lined the walls. Video testimonials played on elegant screens. This mattered to him. Really, truly mattered. Mom, look. Marcus had stopped in front of a stunning mixed media piece. Layers of photographs and fabric woven into a tapestry that seemed to shift depending on your viewing angle. It is called Fractured Histories. The voice came from behind us, deep and warm and immediately recognizable. Nathaniel had returned. Alone this time, Victoria nowhere in sight. The artist explores how we construct identity from broken pieces of memory. He moved to stand beside us, his shoulder almost touching mine. I commissioned it for the foundation because it represents what we are trying to do. Help young people build new stories from the fragments they have been given. That is beautiful, Dad. Marcus studied the piece with unusual intensity. Is the artist one of your scholarship kids? She was. Nathaniel's voice softened. Single mother. 3 jobs. Incredible talent that would have gone undiscovered without intervention. Now she is showing in galleries across the country. I watched his face as he talked about her. The pride. The satisfaction of having made a genuine difference. This was the Nathaniel I had fallen in love with. The one who cared about more than profit margins and market share. The one who had slowly disappeared during our marriage. Buried under the weight of building an empire. Like how you remember Mom differently than she actually was. I blinked at Marcus. Where had that come from? Nathaniel went very still beside me. What do you mean, buddy? You always talk about how busy you were during the marriage. Marcus's voice was quiet but steady. how you were not present, how you made mistakes. That is because I did. I was not. But you never mentioned the good parts. The good parts. The Saturday morning adventures, Marcus continued. When you would wake me up early and we would go exploring before Mom was awake. The way Mom used to stay up all night helping you practice presentations. How you would dance in the kitchen when your favorite songs came on. My breath caught in my throat. I remember those things. His voice dropped even lower. I was little, but I remember. I remember when you were happy together. The ballroom seemed to fade around us. The noise of 300 guests becoming distant static. Nathaniel's eyes met mine over our son's head. Something raw and unguarded flickered in their depths. The same expression I had seen 14 weeks later in the hotel elevator. You remember that? His voice was rough. All of it. Marcus looked between us. The good stuff and the bad stuff. I remember how you used to look at each other like you were the only people in the world. And I remember when that stopped. When the looking turned into something else. My heart was breaking and healing simultaneously. You are remarkably perceptive, Nathaniel managed. Too perceptive sometimes. That is what Mom says too. Marcus offered a small smile. Maybe I am your son. Of course I am. The foundation director appeared then, apologetic and urgent. Major donors requesting Nathaniel's attention. The moment shattered like a champagne glass on marble floor. I have to, Nathaniel started. Go, I said. We understand. He hesitated. Something passing across his face that I could not name. Do not leave yet. Please. I want to. There is more I want to show you both. Then he was gone again. Swallowed by his responsibilities and his success and the life he had built after me, Marcus slipped his hand into mine. He still loves you, Mom? Do not say that, sweetheart. Why not? It is true, I can see it. What you see is complicated history. 6 years of being married creates connections that do not just disappear. But that is not the same as being in love. Are you sure? No. I was not sure of anything anymore. I had not been sure since the moment I saw him across this ballroom and felt my carefully constructed defenses start to crumble. Let us get some dessert, I said instead. I think I saw lemon tarts on one of the tables. Mom, please, Marcus. Not tonight. Not here. He studied me with those 2 old eyes, then nodded slowly. Okay, but we are going to talk about this eventually. I know, sweetheart. I know. The gala continued around us. Beautiful people making beautiful small talk about beautiful causes. Nathaniel appeared and disappeared. Always pulled away by someone more important. Victoria orbited him like a graceful moon. Never too close, but never too far. I was counting the minutes until we could leave when Gabriel Chen materialized at my elbow. Camille Ashford. His smile was warm and familiar. You look like you could use this. He handed me a glass of something clear and sparkling. I took a sip and was surprised to find it was just water. I am driving, I said. I know. That is why I did not bring champagne. Also, you have been nursing the same wine glass for 2 hours without actually drinking from it. I figured water was safer. Gabriel, Nathaniel's best friend and chief operating officer. One of the few people from my old life who had maintained a genuine relationship with me after the divorce. You look lovely, he continued, though about as comfortable as a cat in a bathtub. That obvious. Only to someone who has known you for 15 years. He clinked his water glass against mine. Marcus seems to be enjoying himself. He nodded toward where my son was engaged in earnest conversation with an elderly woman wearing approximately $1 million worth of pearls. He has Nathaniel's presence and my stubborn refusal to be intimidated, I said. Formidable combination. He's going to be remarkable someday. He already is. Gabriel studied me for a long moment, his expression shifting to something more serious. How are you really, Camille? Watching Nate with Victoria cannot be easy. The directness of the question caught me off guard. Gabriel had always been honest. It was one of the things I appreciated about him, even when the honesty was uncomfortable. I am fine. The lie felt familiar on my tongue. It has been 6 years. I have moved on. Have you? Excuse me. Because from where I am standing, you look like someone attending a wake, not a celebration. The observation was too accurate to dismiss. It is complicated. So I have heard. Gabriel's voice gentled. You know Nate has been different lately, since Victoria started pushing for a wedding date. Agitated in a way I have not seen in years. That is not really my business anymore. Is it not? Gabriel, I am just saying. He raised his hands in mock surrender. The man I have watched for the last 6 years built an empire. But the empire did not seem to make him happy, and the beautiful, accomplished woman who wants to marry him does not seem to make him happy either. The only time I see genuine joy on his face is when he talks about Marcus, and occasionally when someone mentions your name. I cannot do this. I set down my water glass. I cannot have this conversation here. Then let us have it somewhere else. Gabriel. Dinner, he said. After this wraps up. A group of us are heading to that new restaurant downtown. You should come. I do not think that is appropriate. Why not? It is just food and conversation. Nothing inappropriate about that. Before I could argue further, Nathaniel appeared at my other elbow. I overheard something about dinner. His voice was slightly breathless. He must have rushed over. I think that is an excellent idea. Camille, you should come. We are celebrating the foundation launch. It would mean a lot to have you there. I should get Marcus home. He is already lobbying Gabriel for permission. Nathaniel nodded toward where my son had abandoned the pearl-covered woman and was now talking animatedly with Gabriel's wife. Please, Camille, it has been so long since we just talked, without custody schedules and logistics. What about Victoria? She is staying to handle some donor follow-up. This voice was carefully neutral. She understands these events require cleanup. Maybe it was the wine I had not actually been drinking. Maybe it was the nostalgia Marcus had stirred up with his observations about the past. Maybe I was simply exhausted from being careful. Okay, I heard myself say. Just dinner. Great. Nathaniel's face lit up in a way I had not seen in years. That is great. Let me just wrap up a few things and we can head out. He disappeared again, but this time he looked over his shoulder as he walked away. Just for a moment. Just long enough for our eyes to meet. Just long enough to make me question every decision I had made. Now, beautiful souls. I have to pause here because I know what you're thinking. You are thinking, Camille, what are you doing? You're thinking this cannot end well. You are thinking that dinner with your ex-husband while his fiancée stays behind to work is a recipe for disaster. And you would be right. But sometimes we know a fire is dangerous, and we reach toward it anyway. Sometimes the warmth feels worth the burn. What happened at that dinner, and in the hours that followed, would change everything. It would create the secret Marcus would later expose. It would set in motion the catastrophe that opened this story. But to understand it, you have to understand what led me there. The years of loneliness. The memories I could not quite bury. The way seeing Nathaniel with his son reminded me of every reason I had fallen in love with him. In the next part, I will take you through that night. The restaurant. The drive home. The choices we made. Before I continue, I want to hear from you. Have you ever made a decision you knew was risky because you could not resist the pull of someone from your past? Have you ever found yourself standing at the edge of something dangerous and stepped forward anyway? Drop your story in the comments. Like this video if you are invested in what happens next. And subscribe if you want to continue this journey with me. Because beautiful souls, the story is just getting started. And sometimes the biggest messes lead us exactly where we are supposed to be. The restaurant was called Luminera. One of those places that required reservations 3 months in advance, unless you were Nathaniel Ashford or someone equally connected. Intimate lighting. Tables spaced far enough apart for private conversation. The kind of establishment where the menu had no prices because if you had to ask, you could not afford it. Gabriel had somehow assembled a group of 8. Himself and his wife, Miranda. 2 foundation board members whose names I immediately forgot. A venture capitalist who seemed fascinated by everything Nathaniel said. And the 3 of us. Nathaniel, Marcus, me. We should not be here. The thought echoed through my mind as the hostess led us to a curved booth in the back corner. This feels like playing with fire. But Marcus was already sliding into the booth with the enthusiasm of a child who had been promised something special. And Nathaniel was gesturing for me to sit next to our son. And somehow, I found myself sandwiched between my past and my future with no clear escape route. The wine arrived before anyone ordered it. Bottles that probably cost more than my car payment. Gabriel poured with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to expensive dinners. To the Sterling Foundation. He raised his glass. And to the man who made it possible. Everyone drank. I took the smallest sip possible and set my glass down. You are not drinking. Nathaniel noticed immediately. His attention had always been like that. Laser-focused when he chose to direct it. Driving, I reminded him. One glass will not hurt. I would rather not risk it. Marcus is in the car. Something flickered across his face. Approval, maybe. Or recognition of the mother I had become in his absence. Responsible as always. Someone has to be. The words came out sharper than I intended. An old wound bleeding through. How many times had I been the responsible one during our marriage? The one who remembered school events and doctor appointments and family obligations while he conquered the business world. I am sorry, I said immediately. That was not fair. It was completely fair. His voice was quiet. One of the things I regret most is how often I left you to carry everything alone. The table had gone silent around us. Gabriel and Miranda exchanged glances. The board members suddenly found their menus fascinating. Marcus watched us with that intense focus that missed nothing. Dad, he said into the awkward silence. Tell everyone about the scholarship kid you wanted me to meet. The one with the art. Nathaniel seized the conversational lifeline gratefully. Right. Yes. There is a remarkable young artist in our program, 17 years old, growing up in foster care. She creates these incredible pieces using found objects, things people throw away. She transforms them into something beautiful. That sounds amazing. Miranda leaned forward. How did you find her? Her social worker reached out to the foundation. Nathaniel's voice warmed as he talked. She had been bouncing between homes for years. No stability, no support, but she never stopped creating. Never stopped seeing beauty in the broken things around her. Like the piece in the gallery tonight. I said, fractured histories, different artist but similar philosophy. Nathaniel turned to me with genuine enthusiasm. The foundation has become a magnet for young people who find meaning in transformation. Taking what is damaged and making it whole again. Something in his words hit me unexpectedly hard. Is that what you are trying to do? The question escaped before I could stop it. Take what is damaged and make it whole. The table went quiet again. Maybe. His eyes held mine. Maybe that is exactly what I am trying to do. Gabriel cleared his throat. Speaking of transformation, he said with forced cheerfulness. Remember that disaster restaurant in the financial district? The one Nate insisted on when we were broke graduates. La Stella. I laughed at the memory, grateful for the subject change. The waiter kept accidentally setting the tablecloth on fire. Atmospheric lighting, he called it. Nathaniel grinned. You thought everything added character, I countered. The peeling wallpaper, the questionable health code violations, the owner who kept calling everyone Bambino regardless of age. It had personality. It had rats. Character rats. I was sick for 3 days afterward, but I took care of you. His eyes softened. Made that terrible soup from the can. The worst soup I have ever had, I admitted. And the sweetest gesture anyone had ever made. The memory hung between us, young and broke and desperately in love, before the company took off, before success built walls between us, before I forgot what it felt like to be the center of his attention. Marcus was watching us with barely contained hope. You used to cook for Mom, if you can call it cooking. Nathaniel laughed. I had 3 recipes, canned soup, frozen pizza, and something I called mystery pasta that was basically whatever we had in the fridge thrown together. It was always terrible, I added. And I loved every bite. Why? Because he made it for me. The words came out before I could filter them. Because in those days, your father worked 16-hour shifts and still came home and tried to take care of me. Because love is not about grand gestures. It is about someone seeing you are tired and making you soup even when they can barely keep their eyes open. The table had gone very still. Nathaniel was staring at me with an expression I could not read. "That is beautiful," Miranda said softly. "That is what real partnership looks like." "It is," Gabriel agreed. His eyes moved between Nathaniel and me with something like speculation. "It really is." The conversation drifted after that. Business talk that I tuned out. Foundation plans that sounded impressive but abstract. Marcus eventually fell asleep against my shoulder, exhausted by the late hour and the excitement of the evening. "I should get him home," I said when the dessert plates were cleared. "It is way past his bedtime." "Let me drive you," Nathaniel offered immediately. "You have had wine, and Marcus is coming home with me anyway. It is my weekend." I had forgotten. The custody schedule that governed our lives had become so routine I sometimes lost track of whose days were whose. I only had one glass. Still, he was already signaling for the check. "I would feel better knowing you got home safe. I can call a car." "Camille." His voice gentled. "Please, let me do this one thing." Something in his tone made me stop arguing. "Okay, fine, thank you." The drive to Nathaniel's Pacific Heights mansion took 20 minutes. Marcus slept the entire way, curled in the back seat like he was 5 years old again, before the divorce, before everything got complicated. Nathaniel drove in silence, the city lights painting patterns across his face. I watched him from the passenger seat and tried to remember the last time we had been alone together. Really alone. Without custody, exchanges, or school events, or the careful presence of other people. Years. It had been years. "He lives for these weekends with you," I said finally. The silence had become too heavy. "I live for them too." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Sometimes I think they are the only thing keeping me sane." "What do you mean?" He did not answer immediately. The car turned onto his street. Massive houses set back from the road. The kind of wealth that felt almost obscene. "I built all of this." He gestured vaguely at the approaching mansion. "The company, the foundation, this house. And sometimes I walk through my own life and wonder who it is for." "Is that not what you wanted?" "I thought it was." He pulled into the circular driveway. The house loomed above us, all glass and sharp angles, beautiful and cold. I thought success would feel different. I thought achievement would fill the empty spaces. Does it not? The car stopped. He turned off the engine but made no move to get out. "Do you remember what I said when I proposed?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "You said you wanted to build something together." I remembered every word. "You said you wanted a partner. Someone to share the victories and the defeats. Someone who would still be there when the world stopped applauding." I meant it. He turned to face me. I meant every word. And then I spent the next decade proving myself a liar. Building something alone while you waited for me to remember you existed. "Nathaniel, I lost you." His voice cracked. "I lost you and I told myself it was for the best. That you deserved someone who could be present. That Marcus deserved a father who was not always distracted. I built a narrative where the divorce was necessary, where we wanted different things, where it all made sense. And now I look at Victoria planning our wedding and I feel..." He paused, searching for words. "Nothing." "I feel nothing, Camille. She is brilliant and beautiful and exactly the kind of partner a man in my position should want. And when she talks about our future, I just feel empty. Maybe you are not ready to remarry. Maybe I married the wrong person the first time and lost her." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. "You did not lose me because you married the wrong person," I said carefully. "You lost me because you stopped showing up, because the company became more important than our family, because I spent years waiting for you to remember I existed. I know. Do you? Because it sounds like you are rewriting history, making it romantic instead of painful." He flinched. "You are right," he said. "You are absolutely right. I am sorry. That was not fair." In the back seat, Marcus stirred, mumbled something in his sleep, then settled again. "We should get him inside," I said. "It is late." "Camille. Nathaniel. Can you come in?" "Just for a minute. I got this new coffee machine that is supposed to be incredible. And I—" He hesitated. I am not ready for this conversation to end. Every warning bell in my head started ringing. "I do not think that is a good idea." "Probably not." He agreed. "But when have we ever done what was smart?" He had a point. Our entire history was a series of questionable decisions that somehow led to the best things in our lives. 10 minutes, I heard myself say. Then I need to get home. His face lit up in a way that made my heart stutter. 10 minutes. He agreed. That is all I'm asking. Famous last words. The house was even more impressive inside. Soaring ceilings. Walls of glass overlooking the city. Furniture that belonged in design magazines. Art that probably cost more than most people's houses. And underneath all that beauty, something hollow. Something missing. "It is incredible," I said, as Nathaniel carried a sleeping Marcus up the stairs. "It is empty," his voice echoed back to me. Beautiful and empty. I waited in the kitchen, a space of marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Everything sleek and modern and completely impersonal. He returned a few minutes later. Jacket removed, sleeves rolled up, looking more like the man I had married and less like the CEO who commanded boardrooms. "Marcus is settled," he said. "Out cold. That kid could sleep through anything. He gets that from you. I remember you falling asleep mid-sentence sometimes. When you had been working too many hours. I remember you covering me with blankets." He moved to the espresso machine, starting the ritual of coffee preparation, turning off whatever I had been watching so the noise would not wake me, taking care of me even when I did not deserve it. That is what partners do. Is it? He looked up from the machine. Because Victoria does not do that. When I fall asleep, she wakes me up and tells me to go to bed like an adult. Different relationship styles, different everything. The machine hissed and gurgled, producing 2 perfect cups of espresso that he carried to where I stood awkwardly by the counter. Our fingers brushed when he handed me the cup. The contact sent electricity through my entire body. "Camille." His voice was low, uncertain in a way Nathaniel Ashford never allowed himself to be. "Can I ask you something? I should really go." The coffee was too hot to drink. The conversation was too dangerous to continue. "Do you ever wonder?" He moved closer. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. The same scent he had worn for 20 years. About us. About what might have happened if I had been different. If I had recognized what I was losing before it disappeared. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Nathaniel, you are engaged. This is not." "I know." He moved even closer, trapping me gently against the marble counter. "I know it is not fair to ask, but tonight watching you with Marcus, hearing those stories about the terrible soup and the burning tablecloth, remembering what we were before I ruined everything." He ran a hand through his hair. That frustrated gesture I had seen 1,000 times. "I have been telling myself for 6 years that the divorce was right, that we wanted different things, that you needed someone who could be present in ways I could not. But what if the only thing wrong was me? My choices. My failure to see what mattered." "You cannot do this," I whispered, even as everything in me wanted to lean into him. "Not now. Not when you are about to marry someone else. You are right." He stepped back, creating space between us. "I am sorry. That was inappropriate. Too much wine. Too much nostalgia. Nathaniel. I do not know what made me do it. Maybe the wine. Maybe the memories. Maybe the ache of 6 years of missing someone standing right in front of me. Maybe the way he looked at me like I was still the most important person in his world, even after everything that had broken between us." I kissed him. For a heartbeat, he froze, completely still, like he could not believe what was happening. Then his arms came around me, and it was like coming home to a place I had forgotten I loved. His mouth was familiar and new at the same time, desperate and tender, and I was drowning in sensation after years of careful numbness. We broke apart, breathing hard, We cannot, I said, even as my hands fisted in his shirt, refusing to let go. I know. You are engaged to Victoria. I know. Marcus is upstairs. I know. His forehead pressed against mine. Camille, I know this is wrong on every level, but God help me. I have not felt this alive in 6 years. What happened next was inevitable and terrible and perfect. We told ourselves it was closure. One last time to remember what we had been before life, and ambition and disappointment eroded everything good between us. We told ourselves a lot of lies that night. I left before dawn, before Marcus woke, before reality could intrude on whatever madness had possessed us. The house was silent as I gathered my clothes and tried to make sense of what I had done. Nathaniel followed me to my car, his shirt untucked, his hair disheveled, looking 25 again instead of 43. We should talk, he said, about what this means. It does not mean anything. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. We got caught up in memories. It will not happen again. Camille, you are marrying Victoria in 4 months. Focus on that. Forget this happened. I drove away before he could see me cry. For 3 weeks, I convinced myself it had been an aberration, a moment out of time that did not count against the reality of our separate lives. Nathaniel and I maintained careful distance at custody exchanges, both of us avoiding eye contact like teenagers caught doing something forbidden. Then, I missed my period. At first, I told myself it was stress. The gala, the dinner, the night I was desperately trying to forget. My body responding to emotional turmoil the way it always did. But a week passed. Then another. The pregnancy test sat on my bathroom counter like a bomb waiting to explode. 2 pink lines screaming the truth I had been denying. At 37, I was pregnant with my ex-husband's baby, while he planned his wedding to another woman. This cannot be happening, I whispered to my reflection. But my reflection had no answers, just the same shocked expression staring back at me. I scheduled an appointment with my doctor, had the results confirmed. Sat in my car in the medical building parking lot for 45 minutes trying to figure out how to tell Nathaniel. There was no good way to deliver this news, no timing that would not be catastrophic. I decided to wait until after the engagement party. Victoria's family was hosting a lavish celebration next month. One more month to find the right words. One more month before I destroyed whatever peace we had built. At work, I buried myself in client projects, grateful that freelance consulting allowed remote work on days when morning sickness left me hugging the toilet. I started prenatal vitamins, stopped drinking coffee, avoided situations where anyone might notice the wine glass in my hand, remained perpetually full but untouched. You look different. My colleague Sarah commented one afternoon over video call. New skincare routine. Just sleeping better. Another lie for the growing collection. You are glowing, though. She squinted at her screen. Seriously, Camille, what is your secret? No secret. Just taking better care of myself. If only she knew. Each morning I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over Nathaniel's contact. Each morning I put it down without calling. The secret grew inside me, silent and patient, waiting for the moment it would demand to be acknowledged. Marcus noticed first. Of course he did. That boy saw everything I tried to hide. Mom, are you sick again? I had not heard him enter the bathroom. I wiped my mouth and flushed away the evidence of morning sickness. Just a stomach bug. I forced a smile. I am fine. His eyes narrowed. That intense Ashford scrutiny that I had first loved in his father's face. You have been fine for 2 weeks now? It is taking a while to resolve. I am not a little kid anymore. His voice was quiet but firm. You do not have to pretend everything is okay when it is not. When did my son become so adult? So perceptive in his understanding? Is it about Dad? He continued. You have been weird since the gala. My heart stuttered. Weird how? You do not look at each other during drop-offs anymore. You used to at least say hello. Now you just nod and walk away. Children notice everything, even what we think we are hiding. Your dad and I are fine. Another lie. They were becoming easier, just busy. He did not look convinced, but he let it go. That weekend, Marcus went to Nathaniel's as usual. When he returned Sunday night, he was quieter than normal, retreating to his room without the usual adventure recap. I found him sitting cross-legged on his bed, staring at something in his hands. "Everything okay with your dad?" He looked up, expression unreadable. "Dad is getting fitted for his wedding suit next weekend." The words should not have hurt. I had known about the wedding for months. "That is nice," I managed. "I am sure he will look very handsome." He asked if I wanted to help pick the tie. "Do you want to go?" Marcus shrugged, fingers turning over whatever he held. "I guess. It is just weird." "What is weird, sweetheart?" "That he is marrying someone who is not you." The simple honesty knocked the air from my lungs. "Oh, Marcus." I sat beside him on the bed, pulling him close. "Your dad and I have been divorced for 6 years. It is natural for him to move on, to find someone who makes him happy." Does she make him happy? What could I say? That I had seen the hollow look in Nathaniel's eyes when he called his beautiful house empty. That I had felt the desperate way he kissed me like a drowning man finding air. I think so. Another lie. Victoria is smart and accomplished. She understands his work. You understood his work. It was more complicated than that, honey. He finally opened his hand, revealing what he had been holding. An old photograph, creased and worn at the edges. The three of us at the beach, Marcus maybe 3 years old, perched on Nathaniel's shoulders while I laughed up at them both. "Dad keeps this in his desk drawer," Marcus said quietly. I found it looking for a pen. My throat tightened. That was a long time ago. He had a weird expression when I asked about it. Kind of sad. Kind of like he was remembering something precious. I took the photograph. Studying our younger selves, we looked so happy, so unaware of the fractures already forming. "Your father will always cherish the family we were," I said carefully. "Just like I do. But sometimes adults grow in different directions, even when they still care about each other." Marcus took the photo back, tracing the edges. "I am going to Dad's fitting, but I am not pretending I am happy about it." The following week brought new challenges. My clothes felt snug. The smell of my favorite coffee made me nauseous. Prenatal vitamins appeared mysteriously on my nightstand when I could have sworn I had hidden them in the back of my closet. "Mom." Marcus appeared one morning without preamble. "Are you pregnant?" The mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the tile. "What? Why would you?" "I found the vitamins, and I researched them. They are for pregnant women." "Marcus, that was invasive. You throw up every morning. You stopped drinking wine. You cry at pet food commercials. And last week when we ordered Mexican, you said the smell made you want to die." I stared at my son, speechless. "Is it Dad's?" His voice was suddenly small. "Is that why you have been acting strange around each other?" "Marcus, this is an adult situation. Just tell me the truth." His voice cracked. "I am not a baby. I deserve to know if I am going to have a brother or sister." The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. I sank onto a kitchen chair, defenses crumbling. "Yes," I whispered. "I am pregnant. About 14 weeks." His face brightened with pure joy. I knew it. "When are you telling Dad? Does he know yet? Is that why you have been avoiding each other?" "No, he does not know. And you cannot tell him, Marcus. This is something I need to handle myself. When the time is right." "When will it be right?" "After he marries Victoria." The accusation stung because it contained truth. "I am telling him after the engagement party," I said firmly. "It is their celebration. I do not want to overshadow it." Marcus crossed his arms, looking far older than 11. "It is not a complication, Mom. It is a baby." "My brother or sister?" "Sister," I corrected without thinking. The ultrasound showed a girl. His eyes widened. "A sister." "I am going to have a sister." Despite everything, I smiled at his excitement. "Yes. But Marcus, promise me you will not say anything to your father. Not yet. This needs to come from me. But after the party you will tell him. I promise." He nodded slowly. "Okay. I will not say anything." Something in his too easy agreement should have warned me. The way his eyes flickered away, the slight curl at the corner of his mouth. But I was too relieved to notice. Thank you for understanding. Sometimes the best things are not planned. He murmured against my shoulder as I hugged him. I should have listened more carefully. As the engagement party approached, my anxiety grew like a living thing. Victoria had insisted on inviting me, a gesture of sophisticated maturity that made me want to scream. How could I sit through an evening celebrating their future while carrying proof of our shared past? The night before, I tried on 3 different dresses, searching for one that would not reveal my slightly rounded stomach. Marcus watched from my doorway. Unusually quiet. The emerald one, he said finally. It makes your eyes beautiful. I turned, surprised by the repeat of his advice from the gala. You said that last time. I know. He came to stand beside me. And I was right. You looked amazing. Dad could not stop staring at you all night. Marcus, I am just saying. He shrugged. You should wear what makes you feel confident, not what makes you feel hidden. The wisdom of an 11-year-old. Sometimes terrifying. Mom. His voice shifted. That careful quality preceding difficult questions. Do you still love Dad? The simple question nearly undid me. It is complicated. That is not an answer. No, it was not. But what was the truth? That I had spent 6 years building a life without Nathaniel Ashford, only to discover he still occupied every chamber of my heart I had claimed to have renovated. I will always care deeply for your father, I said finally. He gave me you. That creates a bond that never truly breaks. Marcus nodded, considering this diplomatic non-answer. And the baby? Will you tell her about her dad? Of course, she will know Nathaniel is her father. Good, he smiled. That secretive smile again. That is really good. The Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom gleamed with wealth and privilege. The same venue as the Foundation Gala transformed into something even more opulent. White flowers cascading from crystal chandeliers. Tables dressed in champagne and gold. A string quartet playing romantic classics. I tugged at my emerald dress, conscious of how it draped across my stomach. 14 weeks was not showing much, but I felt exposed, as if everyone could see the secret growing inside me. Stop fidgeting, I whispered to Marcus, who kept scanning the room like a reconnaissance agent. And remember what we discussed. Best behavior. I know, Mom. His innocent expression did not quite reach his eyes. I promised. The evening stretched before me like an elegant gauntlet. 2 hours of watching Nathaniel and Victoria accept congratulations. 2 hours of polite conversation with strangers who had no idea I had slept with the groom-to-be 3 months ago. Victoria floated through the crowd in a champagne-colored gown, graciously accepting good wishes as if born for this role. Perhaps she had been. Nathaniel stood beside her, handsome in his tuxedo, looking every inch the successful CEO marrying into society. Yet occasionally, when Victoria was distracted, his eyes would scan the room until they found mine. Each time our gazes met, I felt that electric connection. That pull I had never been able to resist. Each time I looked away first. Camille, darling. Gabriel appeared with sparkling water. You look lovely, though about as comfortable as a cat in a bathtub. That is becoming my signature look, apparently. Only at events where your ex-husband is celebrating his engagement to someone else. He clinked his glass against mine. Though to be fair, that is a pretty specific scenario. I appreciate you being here. Where else would I be? He smiled. The best drama in San Francisco and I have front row seats. That is not funny, Gabriel. It is a little funny. Before I could respond, I realized I did not see Marcus. Where is he? I scanned the room. He was just here. Relax. Gabriel nodded toward the far end of the ballroom. I saw him talking to catering staff, probably charming them out of extra desserts. But something in me tensed. Marcus had been too quiet during the drive, too compliant about wearing his suit, too interested in attending a party that should have bored him. I should find him. Then. Feedback from a microphone cut through elegant conversation. All heads turned toward the small stage where the quartet had been playing. Marcus stood at the microphone, his small frame in a tailored suit suddenly commanding 300 adults' attention. My stomach dropped. The world slowed to individual heartbeats as I watched my son take a breath, square his shoulders, look out at the crowd with the confidence of someone who believed absolutely in what he was about to do. "Hi, everyone." His voice echoed through perfect acoustics. "I am Marcus Ashford, Nathaniel's son." Across the room, Nathaniel froze mid-conversation. Champagne glass paused halfway to his lips. Victoria placed a hand on his arm. Smile fixed, but eyes suddenly wary. "I want to make a special announcement tonight. Something my dad does not know yet." I pushed through the crowd, desperate to reach him, heels catching on the marble floor. "Mom is pregnant." "No." "And Dad, please, you are the father." The words detonated through the room. "And you know the rest, beautiful souls." You know about the shattered champagne glass and Victoria's cracking composure. You know about the elevator ride and the private suite and the confrontation that followed. But what you do not know yet is what came after. The days and weeks that followed that catastrophic announcement. The conversations that needed to happen. The healing that had to begin. Because here is what I have learned about life. The worst moments are not always the end. Sometimes they are the beginning. Sometimes it takes an explosion to clear away all the debris we have been hiding behind. Sometimes an 11-year-old boy who refuses to accept that his family is broken can see truth that the adults have been too afraid to acknowledge. In the final part of this story, I will share what happened next. How Nathaniel and I navigated the wreckage. How Victoria found her own path forward. How Marcus learned about consequences and boundaries and the difference between good intentions and good actions. And how a little girl named Eleanor Grace came into the world and changed everything. But before I tell you that, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had someone force you to confront a truth you were not ready to face? Have you ever experienced a moment of complete disaster that somehow led you exactly where you needed to be? Drop your story in the comments. Like this video if you are invested in this family's journey. And subscribe if you have not already, because I have so much more to share with you. Beautiful souls, sometimes the messiest moments in life are the ones that matter most. Sometimes we have to break apart before we can come back together stronger. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.